Hey guys, tonight we are going to get a job. Not just any job, mind you. This is a promotion, a position of great proximity to power. We're stepping back in time, into a world of silk gowns, glittering jewels, and exquisite feasts. But there's a catch. We're not the one wearing the crown. We're the one making sure the food is safe for the person who does. It's a role with fantastic perks, like eating the best food in the kingdom. The only downside, you might not live to see dessert, because your life expectancy is about to take a bit of a nosedive. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. While you're at it, drop a comment below and let me know what city you're listening from, and what time it is for you. It's always cool to see where we're all journeying from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The summons comes on a Tuesday. Or what you think is a Tuesday. In the damp, grey belly of the castle kitchens, days tend to blur into one long, continuous cycle of scrubbing, chopping, and hauling. Your hands are raw, your back aches, and the smell of boiled cabbage and miso has permanently seeped into your clothes and probably your soul. This is your world stone, steam and servitude. Then she appears, the head of household, a woman whose posture is so rigid you suspect her spine is made of iron. She never comes down here. Her presence in the steamy, chaotic kitchen silences the clatter of cooks. Her eyes, small and sharp like a bird's, scan the room and land on you. You, a nobody. A nobody. A girl whose main job is to polish the silver until your own reflection looks back at you, tired and smudged. Your heart does a little frantic flutter against your ribs. A summons from her can only mean trouble. Did you miss a spot on the grand serving platter? Did you accidentally chip a porcelain dish? You run through a mental list of your recent failures, trying to guess the nature of your punishment. But she doesn't scold you. She just beckons with a single bony finger. You, come with me. You follow her out of the familiar heat of the kitchen, your worn leather shoes slapping softly against the cold stone floors. You climb stairs you've only ever scrubbed, past tapestries depicting grand hunts and heroic battles you can't imagine. The air changes. It smells less of cabbage and more of beeswax undoled, important dust. She leads you to a small private antechamber, a room richer than any you've ever stood in. There's a single carved wooden chair and a small table. She gestures for you to stand there, and you obey, hands clasped tight in front of you, trying to seem smaller than you are. The Queen has taken notice of you, the head of household says, her voice as crisp as autumn leaves. You freeze. The Queen, you've only ever seen her from a great distance, a flash of color and jewels across the great hall. She requires a person of simple constitution and quiet disposition for a most personal and delicate task. You don't understand. Simple constitution, quiet disposition. Is that a compliment? She must see the confusion on your face. She sighs, a sound like dry paper rubbing together. The world is full of vipers, girl. Envy and ambition are poisons that fester in every court. Her Majesty's life is under constant threat. A threat that often comes disguised on a dinner plate. And then it clicks. The pieces fall into place with a horrifying, gut-wrenching thud. They're not promoting you. They're making you a shield. A human shield. The official title, as you'll later learn, is something elegant like Lady of the Royal Plate or Credentialed Taster. The reality is much simpler. You are the praegastat, or a practice as old as the Roman emperors, who were famously paranoid about being poisoned by their rivals. You are to be the Queen's personal chandushik to support it, her food taster. The head of household hands you a small, smooth, dark stone. It feels strangely warm in your palm. This is a bezoar, she explains. A stone from the stomach of a goat. It is said to neutralize any poison it touches. This is one of those strange little facts of the era. These stones, along with unicorn horns, which were usually narwhal tusks, were considered the pinnacle of anti-poison technology. You suspect it's more of a good luck charm than a scientific tool, but you cling to it anyway. Your duties begin tomorrow at breakfast, she continues, her tone leaving no room for argument. Not that you could argue anyway. For a girl in your position, this is not an offer. It's a command. Historians still debate how common and consistently this role was enforced in various courts. Was it a daily, terrifying ritual, or a piece of security theater reserved for state banquets? But for you, right now, the debate is over. That it circles all the way back around to a strange holocom. Your life as a kitchen scrubber is over. Your new life, a gilded cage where every meal could be your last, has just begun. The next morning, you're awoken not by the familiar clang of a pot or the shouting of a head cook, but by a soft, insistent knock on a solid wood door. Your door. You're lost. This isn't the sprawling, straw-filled dormitory you share with a dozen other servant girls. This is a small private room, barely bigger than a closet, but it's yours. A narrow bed, a washed sand with a clean pitcher of water, and a simple woolen dress, a muted grey, laid out for you. It's a significant upgrade, a silent statement of your new precarious status. You are no longer one of the anonymous many. You are a specific, named individual with a specific, terrifying purpose. You dress quickly, your fingers clumsy with the unfamiliar buttons. The fabric is smoother, cleaner than anything you've ever owned. It feels like a costume. You are playing the part of someone important enough to have her own room, someone whose life is intertwined with the Queen's. But you feel like a fraud, a sheep being dressed for a very strange, very formal slaughter. The head of household meets you outside your door. She doesn't speak, merely gives you a once-over, her gaze lingering for a moment on your scrubbed hands and cleaned face, before turning and leading the way. The corridors of the royal wing are hushed, the sound of your footsteps swallowed by thick, woven runners on the floor. Sunlight streams through high-arched windows, illuminating dancing dust motes in the air. It's also peaceful, so beautiful it feels like a cruel joke. You're led into the Queen's private dining sala. It's not the grand hall used for banquets, but a smaller, more intimate space. A fire crackles merrily in the hearth. A single table is set for one, gleaming with silver and crystal. And there, at the table, sits the Queen. She is smaller than you imagined, but her presence fills the room. She doesn't look at you. Her eyes are fixed on the window, her expression unreadable. For her, this is just breakfast. For you it is a trial. A servant, a man with a face so grim you suspect HES never smiled, brings in the first course on a silver tray. It's covered with a polished silver dome. He places it not on the Queen's table, but on a small sideboard near where you've been positioned. The head of household stands beside it, her posture radiating an unnerving calm. This is the moment, your first test. The man lifts the dome. Underneath sits a single poached egg on a piece of toasted bread, with a sprig of parsley on the side. It looks perfect, innocent, deadly. A second, identical dish sits on the Queen's table, still covered. You will eat, the head of household says, her voice slow and steady. She hands you a small silver fork. Your hand trembles as you take it. Your throat is dry. Your stomach, which should be rumbling with hunger after a night's sleep, feels like a tight knot of dread. This is the first, and perhaps most difficult, part of your job. Historians and scholars still debate the precise ritual in courts that practiced this. Did the taster eat a portion from the monarch's actual plate? An act of profound, if terrifying, intimacy, or was a second, identical meal prepared, a more controlled and sanitary precaution for you? In this court, it's the latter. A sterile, almost scientific experiment with your life as the variable. You cut off the smallest conceivable piece of the egg and toast. You raise the fork to your lips. Your heart is pounding so loudly you're sure the Queen can hear it. You can feel her gaze on you now, not with malice, but with a detached, clinical curiosity. You are an instrument, a tool she is using to ensure her own safety. You finally place the morsel in your mouth. You chew, but your senses are overwhelmed by fear. Does it taste of egg, of bread? You have no idea. Your entire being is focused on detecting the alien. A bitter aftertaste. A metallic tang. A sudden numbness on your tongue. These are the telltale signs you were hastily taught to look for. Some poisons were notoriously fast-acting, derived from things like hemlock or wolfsbane. Others were slow, more insidious, like arsenic, the infamous inheritance powder that could mimic the symptoms of a simple gastric illness. You swallow. And then, the waiting begins. This is the true torture of the job. You stand perfectly still for what feels like an hour, though it's likely only a few minutes. Every normal sensation in your body becomes a harbinger of doom. A tickle in your throat, is it the poison? A slight cramp in your gut? Is this the beginning of the end? Your mind races, conjuring phantom symptoms. You think of the bezoar stone tucked into a small pocket of your dress. It feels small and useless against the sheer, overwhelming terror of the unknown. Finally, after an eternity, the head of household gives a curt, almost imperceptible nod, the signal, you have survived. Only then does the grim-faced servant move to the queen's table, lift the silver dome from her plate, and she picks up her own fork. You watch her take a bite of the exact same food, your body having certified it as safe. The relief that washes over you is so intense it almost makes your knees buckle. But it's fleeting, because another servant is already walking in, carrying the next course. A small bowl of porridge with berries. The ritual is about to begin all over again. The days that follow bleed into a strange, monotonous rhythm of quiet terror. You learn the routines, the subtle etiquette of your new position. You learn to stand just so, to be present but invisible, to eat with a slow, deliberate pace that masks the frantic hammering of your heart. You learn the faces of the kitchen staff, the serving staff, the guards. You are no longer one of the nobles either. You exist in a lonely liminal space. One evening, after a particularly tense dinner involving a visiting dignitary and a dozen different dishes, you are retreating to the solitude of your small room when a hand gently touches your arm. You flinch, your body conditioned to see any unexpected touch as a threat. But it's only Alara, one of the older Lord mates, her face a web of weary lines, her eyes kind. She pulls you into a small, shadowed alcove, away from the main thoroughfare of the servants' corridor. You did well tonight, little bird, she whispers, her voice raspy from years of breathing in steam and lie. I saw you, still as a statue. Never let them see you sweat. You just nod, unsure what to say. It's the first kindness you've been shown since your promotion. I was like you once, she says, and your eyes widen. Not for the queen, mind you. For her mother, the old duchess. It was a different time, less formal. But the fear was the same. This is a revelation. The thought that someone else has walked this path, has survived it, is a small, flickering candle in the vast darkness of your anxiety. Alara becomes your secret mentor, your only confidant in this gilded prison. In hushed conversations, tucked away in forgotten corners of the castle, she imparts the unwritten rules of the trade, the folklore of the Chamdushu. Rule 1, she tells you, her voice barely a breath. Never trust the new cook, or the old one, for that matter. Trust no one who handles the food. It's a bleak outlook, but a practical one. Rule to know your body. She explains that you must become a scholar of your own physiology. Know the difference between a headache from stress and one from a tainted wine. Know the stomach cramp of hunger versus the cramp of something more sinister. Your gut is your only true friend in this job, she says, a grim smile playing on her lips. Then she shares the stranger, more esoteric rules. The ones that sound like superstition but are born from generations of fear. Always stir your drink 3 times counterclockwise. It unsettles any sedimented poison. Never eat the last bite of anything on the plate. Leave it for the spirits. And always wear a piece of silver touching your skin. She shows you a thin, worn silver bracelet hidden under her sleeve. They say it will tarnish if it's near certain poison. This, you later learn, is a half-truth, a piece of practical chemistry wrapped in folklore. Silver can indeed react and tarnish when exposed to certain sulfur-based compounds, which were present in some cruder forms of arsenic-based poisons. It was a primitive, but not entirely useless, chemical detector. A tiny bit of science in a sea of superstition. She teaches you about the rehearsal. Before a major feast, the head of household will sometimes stage a full-dress rehearsal of the meal, with you as the sole diner. You lead every course in order, a day or 2 before the actual event. The cooks hate it means twice the work. But it's a necessary precaution. The most bizarre and, frankly, most stomach-churning piece of advice she gives you is about a peculiar antidote. If you feel the first signs, she whispers, her eyes darting around the empty hallway, the tingling, the burning in your throat, you must immediately consume a large amount of curdled milk and dash from the hearth. It will make you sick, violently so, but it might just bring the poison out before it takes hold. Whether this disgusting concoction actually worked is something historians still debate. Was it a primitive form of induced vomiting that could, in theory, expel some of the poison before it was fully absorbed, or was it just a desperate, folkloric remedy that gave a dying person a final, unpleasant task you pray you never have to find out? You also learn about the hierarchy of risk. Root vegetables are generally safer. It's harder to poison a turnip than a delicate custard. Breads are a bit trickier. Poisoned flour could be used. But the real dangers, she warns, are the complex, heavily spiced dishes. The sauces, the stews, the meat pies. Anything where a strange, bitter taste could be masked by saffron or cloves. And wine. Alara-s lessons are a strange comfort. They don't lessen the fear, but they give it a shape, a structure. Your terror is no longer a formless, overwhelming fog. It's a series of rules, of rituals, of things to watch out for. She is arming you, not with a sword or a shield, but with a quiet, cautious wisdom. She is teaching you how to survive in a job where survival is not guaranteed or even expected. And in the crushing loneliness of your position, that shared knowledge is the most valuable gift you could ever receive. Your life is now tethered to the Queen's by an invisible, unbreakable thread. You wake when she wakes, you eat when she eats, and you sleep only when she has finished her final sip of nighttime wine. You are her shadow, her living, breathing safety measure. You stand by the wall of her sewing room silent as she discusses fabrics with her ladies-in-waiting. You trail behind her entourage as she takes her carefully guarded walks in the castle's walled garden. The proximity is dizzying. You are closer to the seat of power than most barons in the kingdom. Yet, the distance between you feels as vast and cold as the ocean. She is the queen. You are the help. A very specific, very strange kind of help, but help nonetheless. She rarely speaks to you directly. When she does, it's with a clipped, impersonal tone. The soup is too salty today, she might murmur, not to you, but to the air, for the head of household to overhear and rectify. I find I have no appetite for figs. Your job is not to engage, merely to exist as a precursor to her own experience. She eats what you have proven safe. She avoids what you have not yet touched. This strange relationship is a source of constant, low-grade psychological stress. You are intrinsically linked to this woman, your life literally depending on her whims and routines, yet there is no connection. No warmth. In some historical accounts of royal courts, a deep bond could form between a monarch and a trusted servant. But here in this paranoid, high-stakes environment, intimacy is a liability. Your role prevents it. To become friends with the Queen would be to complicate your function. How could she watch you with detached clinical concern if she saw you as a person, a friend, and how could you do your job if your fear was mingled with affection? So you observe her from a distance, collecting details like a magpie. You learn that she detests the smell of dill. You learn she has a secret sweet tooth for honey cakes, which she only indulges in late at night. You learn that the slight tremor in her left hand gets worse when the ambassador from the Northern Territories is visiting. You know the cadence of her breathing when she's tired, the way she taps her fingers on the table when she's impatient. You are becoming an expert on the Queen, a scholar of her habits, all while remaining a complete stranger. The object of your protection is also the source of your constant peril. Her power, her position, is what makes her a target. And by extension, it makes you one too. Every plate of food placed before you is a testament to her importance and your expendability. It's a bizarre paradox. You are essential to her survival, yet your own survival is a secondary consideration. Your well-being is a means to an end. You feel this most acutely during the waiting period. After you've swallowed a bite of food, you stand perfectly still, every nerve ending screaming, and you watch her. Sometimes she's reading a letter, sometimes she's staring out the window. She never seems to be watching you, but you know she is aware. The entire room is aware. The entire room is aware. The silence in those moments is heavy, thick with unspoken possibilities. In that silence, you are not a girl. A biological clock ticking away the seconds until safety is declared. There's a strange, cold logic to it all, a system that many rulers throughout history, from Roman emperors like Claudius to some Renaissance popes, were said to employ. The logic is simple: if someone wants to poison the monarch, they must first get past the taster. It's the final, most intimate line of defense. But historians debate the psychological toll this must have taken, not just on the taster, but on the ruler. To watch someone risk their life for you, every single day, must surely harden a person. Or perhaps, for those born to rule, it simply becomes another part of the crown, a human tool, no different from the castle walls or the guards at the gate. One afternoon, while she is taking her tea, a bee flies in through the open window and buzzes around her head. The queen flinches, a rare crack in her stoic facade. A lady in waiting shrieks. A guard moves forward. A guard moves forward. But before anyone can react, the queen, with a surprising swiftness, calmly swats the bee away with her handkerchief. It flies back out the window unharmed. For a fleeting second, her eyes meet yours across the room. There's no smile, no acknowledgement, but for a brief, shimmering moment, the distance between you seems to shrink. You both just witnessed a small, unexpected, threatened moment of quiet, competent control. Then she turns back to her tea. The moment passes, and the vast cold ocean rushes back in between you. You now occupy a strange, lonely island in the bustling archipelago of the castle staff. You're no longer part of the kitchen crew, with their boisterous camaraderie and shared grievances about burnt stew and endless pots to scrub. You're certainly not one of the queen's ladies-in-waiting, those perfumed, whispering women who glide through the halls in a cloud of silken secrets. You belong to neither group, and both look at you with a new, unsettling mixture of emotions. The kitchen staff, your former comrades, now treat you with a guarded formality. When you pass through the kitchens on your way to a meal tasting, the usual clamor subsides. Cooks who once shared a joke or a piece of stale bread with you now avert their eyes, their hands busy with their tasks. Their silence isn't born of malice, but of fear. You are a living reminder of the consequences of their work. A single mistake, a moment of carelessness, a contaminated ingredient, it could not only cost you your life, but could bring the full, terrifying wrath of the crown down upon their heads. You are the embodiment of their professional anxiety. Their whispers follow you like a trail of smoke. There she goes, you hear someone mutter. The Royal Canary. It's a surprisingly apt nickname. Canaries were used in coal mines to detect toxic gases if the bird fell silent. It was time for the miners to flee. Your role is no different, just with more elaborate tableware. Then there's the jealousy. It's a bitter, ugly thing you can feel in the air. You get to wear a clean dress. You have your own room. You eat, or at least taste, food that they will only ever get to smell. They see the perks, the proximity to power, the perceived luxury. They don't see the cold dread that wakes you up in the middle of the night, the way your stomach churns at the sight of a serving dish. They don't understand that the finest honey cake tastes like ash when you're wondering if it's laced with nightshade. The ladies-in-waiting under the upper-level servants treat you with a different kind of distance. It's a polite, almost clinical curiosity, as if you are a strange and fascinating specimen. They watch you during meals, their eyes flitting from your face to the queen's. You are a piece of the royal theatre, a dramatic element in the daily performance of power. You represent the dark underbelly of their glittering world, the constant, unspoken threat that necessitates your existence. You aren't a person, you're a precaution. Sometimes their pity is the hardest to bear. A lady-in-waiting might press a small, sweet-smelling pomander into your hand as you pass, whispering, "For your nerves, dear." It's a kind gesture, but it feels condescending. It reinforces your status as a perpetual victim, a creature defined by her fear. The only person who treats you with a semblance of normalcy is Elara, the old laundry maid. Her gnarled hands, however, can't shield you from the pervasive sense of isolation. This loneliness is a key psychological component of your role, a feature, not a bug. A taster who is too friendly, too enmeshed in the social fabric of the castle, is a security risk. A friend can be manipulated. A lover can be blackmailed. A lone wolf is harder to trap. Historians often speculate about the social lives of such individuals. Were they deliberately isolated, or did the nature of their work inevitably push others away? The answer is likely both. The role itself creates the isolation it requires. One day you're standing in your designated spot during a meal when you feel a strange sensation in your mouth. A slight, unusual bitterness after a bite of roasted fowl. Your blood runs cold. Your training, both from the head of household and from Alara Chiksin. Don't panic. Analyze. Is it the spice? A burnt bitterness lingers, a faint, chemical tang. Your heart starts to pound a frantic rhythm against your ribs. This is it. This is the moment you've been dreading. You subtly catch the eye of the head of household. You don't need to speak. Your expression, the sudden rigidity of your posture, is enough. She gives a tiny, almost invisible shake of her head, a signal you've rehearsed. Wait. Be certain. You take a small sip of water, trying to rinse the taste from your mouth. The bitterness recedes slightly. Was it your imagination, a phantom taste conjured by a mind steeped in fear? You stand there for what feels like a lifetime, your entire being focused inward, searching for any other sign, a cramp, a wave of nausea, a dizziness. Nothing comes. The minutes tick by agonizingly slow. Finally, after an eternity of silent, internal screaming, you realize it was a false alarm. Perhaps it was an unfamiliar herb or a piece of game that was slightly too old. The head of household gives a quiet sigh of relief. So faint you almost miss it. The meal continues. But the other servants who witnessed your momentary freeze now look at you with a new level of awe and fear. You almost died just then. Or they thought you did. And in their eyes, you see a reflection, a girl who walks with death every single day. The invisible wall between you and them grows a little thicker, a little higher. Tonight is not a quiet supper in the Queen's solar. Tonight is a spectacle. The Grand Hall, a cavernous space that usually sits empty and decorating, is ablaze with the light of 1,000 candles. Envoys from a wealthy neighboring kingdom have arrived, and the Queen is hosting a banquet in their honor. For most of the castle, this means excitement, pageantry, and a break from the norm. For you, it means your personal nightmare dialed up to an unbearable volume. The sheer scale of the event is overwhelming. The long, heavy oak tables are groaning under the weight of gold plates, glistening goblets, and elaborate centerpiece. Instead of 3 or 4 simple courses, tonight there will be at least a dozen, each one more complex and opulent than the last. The air is thick with the competing smells of roasting meats, exotic spices, wine, and the cloying perfume of the assembled nobility. You stand near the royal table, a small, grey ghost amidst a riot of color and sound. The head of household is a pillar of icy calm beside you, but you can feel the tension radiating from her. A state banquet is the perfect stage for a prolific stage for a political statement, and assassination by poison is one of the oldest and most dramatic forms of political expression. The risk tonight is magnified tenfold. The first course arrives, carried in a grand procession by a line of nervous-looking servants. It's a menagerie of small, delicate bites, quail legs in jelly, spiced nuts, and tiny tarts filled with a savory cream. A separate, identical platter is placed on your small tasting table. Under the watchful eyes of the entire court, you begin your work. One by one, you take a small portion of each item. The quail leg. Chew, swallow, wait. The spiced nuts. Chew, swallow, wait. The tart. Chew, swallow, wait. The minutes stretch into an eternity. The hum of conversation at the royal table, the distant music from the minstrel's gallery, it all fades into a dull roar in your ears. Your entire world has shrunk to the surface of this platter and the sensations inside your own body. This is where the job becomes a performance. You must appear calm, efficient, almost bored. Any sign of hesitation, any flicker of fear in your eyes would be a diplomatic incident. It would be an insult to the guests, an implication that the Queen suspects them of treachery. So you school your features into a mask of placid neutrality, even as your stomach ties itself into sailor's knot. The sheer number of dishes is a logistical challenge. You can't possibly eat a full portion of everything. That would be a feast in itself. Your job is to sample, to take just enough of each component to detect any immediate threat. A sliver of the roast peacock, a spoonful of the sauce, a single grape from the bunch. Each bite is a calculated risk, a tiny game of Russian roulette. The wine is the worst part. Each time the queen's goblet is to be filled, a servant first pours a small amount into a designated tasting cup for you. You swirl it and take a sip, holding it in your mouth for a moment before swallowing. Is that hint of almond a characteristic of the vintage, or the telltale sign of cyanide is the metallic aftertaste from the goblet itself, or from something far more sinister? The existence and role of a dedicated wine taster or summoner is a well-documented part of many royal households. Sometimes this was a separate role from the food taster, a specialist in the potential dangers lurking in the royal cellar. But tonight, that responsibility falls to you. You feel a particular dread with each new vintage port. Food could be tainted by accident, through poor storage or a careless cook, but a poison bottle of wine that is almost always deliberate. Halfway through the feast, after you have successfully navigated a river of sauces and a mountain of roasted meats, a special dish is brought out in honor of the guests. It's a complex, glistening fish pie, decorated with pastry shaped like waves and seashells. It's a work of art. It's also your greatest fear on a plate. The combination of fish, which can spoil easily, and a thick, creamy sauce that could hide any number of unpleasant tastes or textures, makes it a prime candidate for foul play. You take a small forquefuel. The pastry is flaky, the sauce is rich with herbs. The fish itself tastes fresh, but as you chew, you notice something. A tiny, gritty texture. It's almost imperceptible, like a single grain of sand. Your heart stops. Is it sand, or is it ground glass, or the powdered remnants of a poisonous root? You discreetly press your tongue against the roof of your mouth, trying to isolate the particle. The head of household, ever watchful, notices the subtle shift in your posture. Her eyes narrow. The world seems to slow down. You see the queen, mid-laugh at something her guest has said. You see the candlelight glinting off the jewels of the noble women. You see the whole glittering, oblivious pageant, and you are the single, silent point of terror at its center. After a moment that feels like a year, you manage to work the tiny grain to the front of your mouth. With a movement you hope looks like you're dabbing your lips with a napkin. You catch it in the cloth. You sneak a look. It's a tiny fleck of dark gray. Not the clear glint of glass. Most likely, it was a piece of grit from the salt grinder or a speck of char from the oven. The relief is so profound it makes you dizzy. You give the head of household the faintest, almost invisible nod. The signal is passed. The queen is served the pie. She eats it with gusto, declaring it a triumph. No one knows that for a full 30 seconds, the success of this entire diplomatic event, and the life of their monarch, hung on the texture of a single, stray speck in a fish pie. The feast, for them, is a celebration. For you, it has been a long, slow walk across a battlefield, dodging invisible bullets with every step. In the quiet moments between meals, you become a reluctant student of a grim and clandestine science, the art of poison. Your education isn't formal. There are no books, no lectures. It's a curriculum of whispers, warnings, and nervous observations, taught primarily by Alaron, supplemented by the cold, practical instructions of the head of household. Most poisons are mimics. Elara tells you one afternoon while folding a mountain of linen in the laundry. They pretend to be other things. A sudden, violent stomach sickness, it could be tainted pork, or it could be arsenic. A creeping numbness and a racing heart, it could be a fright, or it could be wolfsbane. You learn the names of the great botanical villains: hemlock, the poison of choice for the ancient Greeks, said to cause a slow, creeping paralysis. Monkshood, also known as wolfsbane, a fast-acting cardiotoxin that could be derived from a pretty purple-flowered plant, and deadly nightshade, with its sweet-tasting berries that pupils and bring on a fatal delirium. You start to look at the castle's beautiful gardens with a new sense of suspicion. Every pretty flower, every unfamiliar botanical herb could be a source of danger. The head of household's lessons are less about folklore and more about procedure. She shows you how to recognize the telltale signs of tampering. A broken seal on a jar of preserves. A strange discoloration in a block of cheese. A wine cork that seems to have been disturbed. The kitchen is a fortress, she explains, her voice sharp and precise. Every ingredient that enters is checked. Every barrel is sealed. Every spice box is locked. Your job is the last, unfortunate necessity. You are the final wall. You learn that some of the most effective poisons were mineral-based. Arsenic, the so-called king of poisons, was a particular favorite among the ambitious and the vengeful. It was odorless, tasteless in small doses, and its symptoms, vomiting, cramps, diarrhea, could easily be mistaken for dysentery or cholera, common ailments of the time. This made it fiendishly difficult to detect and prove, earning it the nickname inheritance powder. One of the more peculiar and less-known dangers Yoi warned about is something called ergotism. It wasn't a deliberately administered poison, but a natural one. A fungus called ergot could grow on rye grain, especially after a wet growing season. If this tainted rye was milled into flour and baked into bread, it could cause horrific symptoms, convulsions, hallucination in the limbs, and even gangrene. Entire villages were sometimes afflicted by what they called street unvomies fire, never realizing the poison was in their daily bread. Historians now speculate that some historical events, including accusations of witchcraft like those in Salem, might have been influenced by ergot poisoning and the resulting mass hallucinations. For you, this adds another layer of anxiety. Even with the tightest security, nature itself could be a conspirator. A loaf of bread, the most basic and honest of foods, could carry a hidden madness. Your senses, by necessity, become unnaturally sharp. You are taught to smell everything before you taste it. Does the milk have a slightly sourer scent than usual? Does the wine carry a faint, bitter almond smell? The supposed calling card of cyanide. You learn to look, really look, at your food. Is there an unusual sheen on the surface of the soup, a powder that hasn't quite dissolved in the gravy? Taste is your last resort, the final confirmation. You learn to parse flavors with the concentration of a scholar. You must distinguish between the bitterness of chicory and the bitterness of poison, the metallic taste of a water source and the metallic taste of a lethal salt. Your tongue, once a simple organ for enjoying your meals, has been weaponized. It is your primary tool, your most sensitive detector, and the part of you in most immediate danger. This knowledge is a heavy burden. It transforms your world. Food is no longer nourishment or pleasure. It is a collection of potential threats. A mushroom soup is a game of chance. A glass of water is a vessel for the invisible. You can never again look at a meal with simple, uncomplicated hunger. Every dish is a puzzle, a question waiting to be answered. Your answer, confirmed by your own survival, determines whether the queen will eat. This constant vigilance is exhausting. It seeps into your dreams. You dream of flowers with fanged petals and rivers of bitter wine. You wake up with the ghost of a metallic taste in your mouth. You are becoming an expert in a field you never wished to study, a connoisseur of death. The irony is not lost on you. To protect one life, you must become intimately acquainted with all the ways a life can be stolen away on the end of a fork. It happens on a day that is aggressively, almost mockingly ordinary. The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, and the castle is humming with its usual mid-morning activity. The queen is having a simple lunch in her private chambers, a cold slice of roasted chicken, a wedge of cheese, and some bread. Simple, familiar, safe. You go through the motions. A small piece of the chicken. A nibble of the cheese. It tastes like cheese. A bite of the bread. It tastes like bread. You give the almost imperceptible nod to the head of household, who has been watching you with her usual hawk-like intensity. The queen picks at her own plate, her attention on some documents spread before her. You remain in your designated spot by the wall, letting the minutes tick by, the familiar post-tasting tension slowly beginning to recede. But then a subtle shift begins in your own body. It starts as a low, dull ache in your stomach. You try to dismiss it. Perhaps you're just hungry. Perhaps you're tired. You've had phantom pains before, your mind playing tricks on you. But this one doesn't fade. It intensifies, coiling in your gut like a hot snake. A wave of nausea washes over you, sudden and powerful. You swallow hard, your mouth filling with saliva. A cold sweat breaks out across your forehead and the back of your neck, despite the warmth of the room. Your heart, which you've grown so accustomed to pounding with fear, is now pounding with a terrifying new rhythm, a frantic, sickly beat. This is different. This is real. You try to remain still, to not draw attention to yourself. Panic is a fire that, once lit in a royal court, is nearly impossible to contain. But your body is betraying you. Your breath hitches. You can feel the blood draining from your face. The head of household, whose entire career is built on noticing the unnervity of details, is at your side in an instant. Her face is a mask of grim concern, but her voice is a low, urgent whisper meant only for you. My stomach. You manage to choke out the words, feeling thick and clumsy in your mouth that burns. That's all she needs to hear. In a flash, the quiet, orderly room explodes into controlled chaos. With a sharp, commanding gesture, she signals a guard by the door. The physician. Now, to the servant who brought the food, she snaps, "Seal this room. No one enters or leaves. Nothing is to be touched." The queen looks up, her eyes wide with alarm, not for you, but for the implications. She pushes her chair back, her own plate of half-eaten food suddenly looking like a coiled viper on the table. The threat is no longer theoretical. It's here in the room, and it has just detonated inside your body. Two guards swiftly escort the queen to an adjoining, secure chamber. The grim-faced servant who served the meal looks pale with terror, understanding that he is now the primary suspect. You are vaguely aware of this happening, but your world is shrinking, narrowing to the fire in your belly and the roaring in your ears. You are half carried, half dragged to your small room, the head of household barking orders the entire way. The castle physician, a flustered man with kind eyes and a fringe of white hair, arrives, his bag of remedies clinking. He feels your pulse, looks at your pale, clammy skin, and asks you questions you can barely answer. He forces a vile-tasting liquid down your throat, a mixture of charcoal and other substances meant to absorb whatever is inside you. Then comes the antidote Talara told you about, the curdled milk and dash. It is as disgusting as you imagined, and the result is immediate and violent. Your body heaves, trying to expel the poison. You drift in and out of a feverish, nightmarish state. Faces swim above you, the physician, the head of household, a priest murmuring prayers. You are no longer a person. You are a crime scene. You are the sole piece of evidence in a case of attempted regicide. The debate over what truly constituted poison in these times is complex. While we think of specific chemical compounds for centuries, the term could also encompass what we would now call severe food poisoning or allergic reactions. Was a sudden illness after a meal always an assassination attempt, or was it sometimes just a case of spoiled food? A concept of bacteriology that was still centuries away. Historians often struggle to differentiate between genuine plots and simple, pre-modern hygiene failures when reading accounts of such events. But, in this moment, the distinction is irrelevant. The intent is assumed to be malicious. While you fight for your life in your small bed, the castle is turned upside down. The kitchen staff is interrogated. The chicken is examined, the cheese sniffed, the bread pulled apart. Every supplier, every servant who came near the queen's lunch is under suspicion. Hours later, the violent sickness subsides, leaving you utterly drained, weak, but alive. The physician declares that you will recover. The verdict comes back from the kitchens not long after the chicken was. It seems slightly tainted. It hadn't been stored properly in the summer heat. It wasn't a deliberate act of poison, but a simple, almost mundane, mistake, a case of what we call food poisoning. The collective sigh of relief in the castle is palpable. It was an accident, but for you, the experience is no less terrifying. Accident or assassination attempt, the result was the same. You were the one who suffered. You were the one who writhed in agony. You had just stared death in the face, and it had the bland, ordinary taste of cold chicken. You have done your job. You have done your job. You have pre-screened a danger. And in doing so, you have lived to address rehearsal for your own death. After the incident with the tainted chicken, your status in the castle shifts once again. You are no longer just the taster. You are the taster who survived. This elevates you to a new level of strange, morbid celebrity among the staff. They look at you with a mixture of awe and pity. You are a living testament to the dangers of the job, and a symbol of an almost supernatural resilience. With this new status comes strange new perks. The head of household, perhaps out of a flicker of guilt, or a pragmatic desire to keep her primary security asset in good working order, makes small improvements to your life. Your room is furnished with a slightly softer mattress, fearful bites you take in the Queen's presence. This is the great, bitter irony of your position. You are surrounded by the most exquisite food in the kingdom. On any given day, the royal table might feature tender venison roasted with juniper berries, delicate fish poached in white wine and herbs, pastries filled with spiced fruits and creams, and cheeses from the farthest corners of the realm. It's a culinary paradise. But for you, it's a minefield. Your relationship with food has been irrevocably broken. Hunger for you is no longer a simple physical need. It's a source of anxiety. Pleasure is a distant memory. When you place a piece of honeyed fig in your mouth, your first sensation isn't sweetness, it's a wave of clinical analysis. Your tongue isn't tasting, it's cross-referencing a mental library of potential threats. The complex joy of a well-prepared meal is lost to you, replaced by the binary, life or death question, safe or not safe. This psychological conditioning is absolute. Even later, when you're alone in your room with a plate of certified safe leftovers, the enjoyment is muted. The shadow of the tasting ritual lingers over every bite. You eat quickly, mechanically, your body still braced for a sudden cramp, a bitter aftertaste. The association of food with fear is so deeply ingrained it has become a part of you. One of the most peculiar benefits of your job is the access to rare and exotic ingredients that were believed to have protective properties. The bezoarstone is one. Another is the widespread belief in the riek, a complex medicinal concoction that was a staple in wealthy households for centuries. The riek was the ultimate cure-all, an intricate blend of dozens, sometimes hundreds of ingredients, including everything from cinnamon and opium to viper's flesh. It was believed to be a universal antidote, capable of counteracting any poison. The Queen takes a small dose every morning, and a tiny portion is allotted to you as well. It tastes vile, a muddy, spicy paste, and whether it has any real effect is highly questionable. Historians today see the riek as a fascinating example of pre-scientific pharmacology, a testament to the desperate search for security in a world full of invisible dangers. For you, swallowing the foul-tasting stuff is just another part of the bizarre daily ritual. You also get the best part of the bread. It's a small thing but significant. In a time when bread was a staple of every honest diet, the curate coarse, dark bread made from rye or barley, often gritty with millstone dust. The wealthy ate fine, white bread made from sifted wheat flour, known as manchet. It was soft, light, and a symbol of status, because the Queen's bread had to be of the highest, most consistent quality to prevent any accidental contamination like the ergot fungus you, by extension, only ever taste the finest bread in the land. You nibble on a food item that many peasants would consider the height of luxury, but you can't enjoy it. The greatest perk, however, is a grim one. You are well fed in a world where hunger is a constant, looming presence for many. While common folk might face lean winters and failed crops, you are guaranteed a taste of the kingdom's bounty. It's a strange sort of privilege, born from your expendability. You are kept healthy and strong not for your own sake, but to ensure you are a reliable detector. A sick or malnourished taster is an unreliable instrument, so you are provided for, kept in peak condition not out of love, but to ensure you can perform your deadly hunt effectively. You sit in your small room one evening, looking at a plate holding a perfect slice of venison pie. It smells incredible. It's warm. It's warm. It's warm. It's warm. It weighs the fork to your lips. You hesitate. The memory of the burning in your gut, the cold sweat, the violent heaving is still fresh. The pleasure of the food is inextricably linked to the pain it could cause. This is your life now, a feast of paradoxes, a banquet of fear. Most miserable girl in the entire castle. Your body is no longer your own. It has been repurposed. It once belonged to you, a vessel for your thoughts, your aches, your simple pleasures. Now it is an instrument of the state, a highly specialized piece of royal equipment. Its official owner as the queen. Its function is to detect poison. You are merely its caretaker, its anxious, hyper-aware operator. This transformation is profound and invasive. You have become a stranger in your own skin, constantly monitoring its signals, decoding its language of twings, rumbles, and aches. Every sensation is suspect. A simple itch on your arm makes you glance down, checking for a rash. A fleeting headache makes you wonder if it's the wine from lunch finally taking effect. A moment of dizziness is not just dizziness, it's a potential symptom, a data point in the ongoing experiment of your survival. You develop an internal map of your own body that is exquisitely detailed. You know the exact cadence of your resting heartbeat. You know the normal sounds of your own digestion. You are so attuned to your internal landscape that any deviation, no matter how small, sounds a blaring alarm in your mind. This is a level of self-awareness that borders on obsession, a constant, low-grade hum of anxiety that never truly fades. It's the first thing you feel when you wake up and the last thing you think about before you fall into a restless sleep. This intense focus on the physical has a strange side effect. It detaches you from your own emotions. Fear is a constant, yes, but it's a cold, functional fear, not a hot, panicky one. You don't have the luxury of emotional breakdowns. Your focus must be on the concrete, the physical, the taste, the texture, the after effects. You observe your own fear as if from a distance, another symptom to be noted. Heart rate is elevated. Palms are sweating. Normal response to tasting a new, unfamiliar seafood dish. The concept of a human body as a tool for detection was not limited to tasting. In different eras and contexts, people's bodies were used to measure and understand the world. Computers, for instance, were originally people, often women, who performed complex mathematical calculations by hand. Their brains were the processing units. In a similar, albeit far more grim fashion, your body is a biosensor. Your daddy is a biosensor. Your digestive system is the laboratory. You learn to categorize the body's protests. There are the fast signs and the slow signs. The fast signs are the ones you dread most: a sudden numbness on the tongue, a sharp burning pain in the throat, immediate cramping. These are the calling cards of potent, fast-acting poisons like hemlock or certain animal venoms. They offer little time for reaction and even less for hope. Then there are the slow signs, the insidious creep of things like arsenic. These could begin hours after a meal, mimicking a common illness. A lingering nausea, a persistent headache, a general feeling of malaise. This is why your job doesn't end when the queen finishes her meal. You are under observation for hours afterward. A sudden illness in the middle of the night could still be linked back to dinner. Your health is a lagging indicator of the queen's safety. One of the strangest, most specific instructions you receive is about your mouth. After every tasting, the head of household had instructed you, her voice clinical and detached: rinse, but do not swallow, and pay attention to how much saliva you are producing. It's a bizarre, intimate command, but there's a grim logic to it. Some poisons, particularly those derived from deadly nightshade, cause an immediate and noticeable dryness in the mouth, might cause an excess of saliva with a strange metallic tang. Your very spit is a clue. This idea of the body as a passive detector is a subject of much discussion among medical historians. They debate how much of the perceived detection was real and how much was psychosomatic, born of immense stress. Could a person, under such pressure, manifest physical symptoms of poisoning out of sheer terror? It's a chicken and egg question that is impossible to answer. But for you, the distinction is meaningless. A real cramp and an imagined cramp feel terrifyingly similar in the moment. You lie in your bed at night, feeling the blood pulse through your veins, hearing the soft gurgle of your own stomach. You are a living machine, a complex assembly of flesh and bone, and your sole purpose is to wait for a malfunction. You feel a strange sense of ownership and alienation all at once. This body is the only thing you truly have, yet it is not truly yours. It is a fragile, fallible, and ultimately disposable piece of equipment, and your job is to listen to it every second of every day, hoping and praying that it doesn't have any bad news to report. The hierarchy of the royal household is a complex, rigid structure, and you are not the only one whose life is governed by the queen's safety. There are the guards who stand sentinel at her door, the ladies-in-waiting who check her bedding, and there is also Thomas, the royal sommelier. Thomas is the Queen's official wine taster or cup-bearer, a role with a history as long and storied as your own. He is a man in his late 40s, with a weathered face and hands that are surprisingly steady, considering his profession. He is responsible for the royal cellars, for selecting the wines for every meal, and for performing the same terrifying ritual as you, but with liquids. While you contend with sauces and stews, his domain is the goblet and the carafe. You and Thomas share a strange, unspoken bond. You are colleagues in the most morbid sense of the word. You rarely speak, your duties keep you in separate orbits for most of the day, but you exchange glances across the dining hall. It's a look of mutual understanding, a shared acknowledgement of the sword that hangs perpetually over both your heads. His presence is a comfort, in a way. It means you are not entirely alone in your strange profession. One evening there's a small private dinner for the Queen and a few of her most trusted advisors. The mood is tense, there are rumors of unrest in the northern provinces. Thomas is in attendance, presiding over the pouring of a deep, red wine from the southern vineyards, a particular favorite of the Queen. You do your duty, tasting the soup, the bread, the roasted capon. All seems fine. Then, it's Thomas's turn. As is tradition, the steward presents the bottle to him. He inspects the cork, sniffs the neck of the bottle, and then pours a small amount into his silver-tasting cup. He swirls the wine, watching its legs cling to the side of the cup. He inhales its bouquet deeply, his eyes closed in concentration. Finally, he takes a sip, letting it coat his tongue. He holds the wine in his mouth for a longer than usual moment. You, being a student of such tense pauses, notice the minute delay. From across the room, you see his brow furrow ever so slightly. It's a flicker of an expression so fast that no one else seems to notice. But you do. You see the subtle shift from professional assessment to alarm. He swallows. Then he simply stands there. He doesn't give the customary nod to the steward. The silence stretches. The Queen, who had been in conversation with her chancellor, looks over, annoyed by the delay. Thomas, is there a problem with the wine? Thomas opens his mouth to speak, but no words come out. A look of confusion crosses his face. He raises a hand to his throat, as if to clear it, and then he collapses. It is not a dramatic, theatrical fall. It is a sudden, terrifying folding of the limbs, a puppet whose strings have been cut. His silver cup clatters to the stone floor, the dark red wine spreading like blood. The room erupts. The ladies-in-waiting scream. The guards unsheathe their swords, forming a protective circle around the shocked Queen. The Chancellor shouts for the physician. It is chaos, raw and unfiltered. You are frozen in your spot, a pillar of ice in a storm of panic. You stare at Thomas's still form on the floor, the life draining from him with shocking speed. This is not a drill. This is not a drill. This is not tainted chicken. This is poison, real, fast, and brutally effective. The physician rushes to Thomas's side, but it's too late. There is nothing to be done. Within minutes, he is gone. The royal sommelier, the man who shared your terrible burden, has been consumed by it. The aftermath is a grim, methodical sweep. The castle is locked down. The bottle of wine is seized as evidence. The steward who poured it is dragged away, weeping and protesting his innocence. The entire kitchen staff who worked that night are confined to their quarters. The investigation begins, swift and ruthless. The death of a servant, even a high-ranking one, might normally cause a stir, but the death of a taster is an event of a different magnitude. It is a direct attack on the Queen. Thomas did not die of a sudden illness, he was murdered. He was the shield, and the arrow went straight through him. Historians debate how often tasters actually died in the line of duty. Records are often incomplete or ambiguous. A taster who fell ill and died might be recorded as having succumbed to a sudden ague or affliction of the stomach, masking the true cause to prevent panic or political fallout. The very purpose of the role was to be a secret defense, and acknowledging its failure was an admission of vulnerability. The quiet disappearance of a taster was often less disruptive than a public investigation. You are confined to your room, not as a suspect, but for your own safety. You sit on your bed trembling, the image of Thomas's collapse burned into your mind. The abstract fear you live with every day has suddenly become horrificously concrete. It has a face, a name. It is no longer a what if. The shared glance you and Thomas used to exchange across the room was one of camaraderie. You were two soldiers in the same trench. Now one of you has fallen. The terrible weight of your shared profession now rests entirely on your shoulders. The wine, the water, the ale, it all falls to you now. You are the last line of defense, and for the first time, you truly understand that this job doesn't just come with the risk of death. It comes with the expectation of it. The death of Thomas casts a long cold shadow over the entire castle, but for you, it's a personal eclipse. The sun has gone out of your world. Every waking moment is now saturated with a new, more potent vintage of fear. Before, the danger was a theoretical concept, a ghost story you were forced to live in. Now, the ghost is real, and it wears the face of a man you knew. The immediate aftermath is a blur of heightened security and suffocating paranoia. Every meal becomes an ordeal of unbearable tension. Your role has expanded. You are now responsible not only for the food, but for every beverage that passes the Queen's lips. The wine, the water, even her morning tea is an E. You have inherited Thomas' burden, and it is crushingly heavy. This new reality breeds an intense, profound loneliness. You were isolated before, but you had a silent comrade, a fellow traveler on this dark road. Now, you are utterly alone. The other servants, who already treated you with a mixture of fear and pity, now look at you as if you are already a ghost. You are the next one in line. Your survival of the chicken incident was a fluke. Thomas' death was the norm. You begin to deliberately withdraw from any and all social contact. You trust no one. Every person in the castle, from the highest lord to the lowest stable boy, is a potential suspect in Thomas' murder. The hand that poisoned the wine could be the same hand that pats you on the back, the same voice that offers you a kind word. Elara, the old laundry maid, tries to offer you comfort, but you pull away. Her kindness now feels like a potential liability. What if someone tries to get to you through her? What if she herself is not what she seems? Your mind becomes a fortress, and you are its sole sleepless guard. You replay every interaction, analyze every glance, search for hidden meanings in every word. The friendly butcher, who always saves the best cuts for the royal kitchen, is his friendliness genuine? Or the quiet scullery maid who never makes eye contact, is she shy? Or is she hiding something? Paranoia is no longer a symptom of your job, it is the central tool required to perform it. To survive, you must become suspicious of kindness, wary of friendship, and deaf to intimacy. To form a bond with someone is to create a vulnerability, a weak point in your armor that a clever enemy could exploit. A friend could be bribed. A loved one could be thrust to choose between their safety and the Queen's. It is a choice you pray you never have to make, and the only way to avoid it is to have no one to choose. Historians who study the psychological toll on individuals in high-pressure court positions often speak of this phenomenon. Spies, bodyguards, and yes, tasters often lead lives of forced isolation. The constant threat of betrayal makes genuine human connection a dangerous luxury. Their loyalty had to be absolute, and the easiest way to ensure that was to have no competing loyalties. Your loneliness is a tangible thing. It's the silence in your small room, the empty space beside you in the dining hall where Thomas used to stand, the way you walk through crowded corridors feeling completely invisible and terrifyingly exposed at the same time. One of the strangest and most poignant pieces of advice from this era regarding such roles is the admonition against owning pets. A small dog or a cat could be a source of comfort, a small, warm thing to care for in a cold world. But a pet could also be poisoned, a cruel and simple way to test a new substance or to psychologically torment a taster before an assassination attempt, so you are denied even that simple comfort. Your isolation must be absolute. You find yourself focusing on the inanimate. You trace the patterns in the stonework of the walls. You study the intricate weaving of the tapestries. You count the number of steps from your room to the Queen's solar. These are safe things to focus on. They cannot betray you. They cannot betray you. They cannot betray you. They are predictable, solid, and real in a world of shifting allegiances and hidden dangers. You are walking through the gardens one afternoon, a few paces behind the queen and her ladies. You see two young kitchen hands laughing together, sharing a secret. You see a stable boy gently stroking the nose of his favorite horse. You see the queen's ladies in waiting whispering and giggling behind their fans. You are surrounded by life, by connection, by small moments of shared joy and affection. And you are completely cut off from it. You are an island, and the sea around you is made of poison. Your absolute solitude is the price of your continued, precarious existence. It is the heaviest tax your strange profession levies upon your soul. The weeks after Thomas' death are a grim, grey expanse of fear and suspicion. The queen, usually so composed, is visibly on edge. Her temper is short, her silence is long and heavy. The entire court holds its breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. The investigation into the Sommer's murder has yielded nothing but a dozen terrified, imprisoned servants and a profound sense of vulnerability. Your routine is now stricter than ever. The number of dishes served at each meal is reduced. The variety of ingredients is limited to only the most trusted sources. Every meal is a stark, tense affair. The simple pleasure of dining has been utterly erased from the royal court, replaced by a grim ritual of survival. One afternoon, you are standing in your usual spot in the queen's private solar. It's a quiet meal, just the queen alone. A light train is pattering against the leaded glass of the window, a soft, melancholy sound. You've just tasted a small bowl of leeking potato soup. It was warm and comforting, and for a moment, it reminded you of a time before all this. A time when food was just food. As you stand waiting for the requisite time to pass, a wave of exhaustion washes over you. It's not just physical tiredness, it's a deep, soul-crushing weariness. The constant vigilance, the fear, the loneliness, it's a weight that is becoming too heavy to carry. For a split second, you close your eyes, your posture slumping ever so slightly. It's an infinitesimal lapse, a momentary surrender to the crushing gravity of your life. But she sees it. When you open your eyes, the queen is looking directly at you. Not with her usual detached, clinical gaze, but with an expression you've never seen before. It's not pity, not exactly. It's something more complex. Recognition, perhaps. She doesn't speak. She simply picks up a small, perfectly ripe pear from the fruit bowl on her table. She holds it for a moment, her fingers tracing its smooth green skin. Then, she places it not on her own plate, but on the small tasting table that has been set up for you. She says nothing. She just gives you a small, almost imperceptible nod, and then turns her attention back to her soup. You stare at the pear. It's a simple gesture, but it's a profound departure from the established protocol. The protocol is rigid: food is prepared. A portion is given to you, you taste it, you wait. The queen eats her identical portion. But this is different. She has given you something from her own table, something intended for her. And she has done it before you have tasted it for her. Your mind races, trying to understand the meaning. Is it a test? Is she trying to catch you off guard? Is the pear poisoned? And this is some elaborate, cruel trap. Your paranoid, conditioned mind immediately jumps to the worst possible conclusion. But then you look at her. She is eating her soup quietly, her back partially to you. The gesture didn't feel like a test. It felt spontaneous, almost gentle. You stand there, paralyzed by confusion. The head of household, standing a few feet away, looks equally baffled, her iron composure momentarily cracking. This is not in the rulebook. Slowly, cautiously, you pick up the pear. It feels cool and solid in your hand. It smells sweet, fresh. You look at the queen again. She doesn't turn. It's as if she has given you a small, secret gift and is now granting you the privacy to receive it. You don't taste it, not in your official capacity. This feels different. This pear is not part of your duty. After the meal is over, after the queen has retired for her afternoon rest, the head of household, with a look of stern confusion, allows you to take the pear back to your room. You sit on your narrow bed and look at this simple piece of fruit. In a world of rigid rules and cold transactions, this pear is an anomaly. It's an unscripted moment, a flicker of humanity in the midst of a bleak and terrifying machine. Why did she do it? Historians and biographers often search for these small, humanizing moments in the lives of powerful figures. They debate the sincerity of such gestures. Was it a calculated act of benevolence, designed to ensure the loyalty of a key servant, or was it a genuine, impulsive act of empathy, a fleeting recognition of the terrible burden you carry for her? Perhaps in that moment, seeing her exhaustion, she ceased to be the queen and you ceased to be the taster. For a split second, you were just a woman in a quiet room, sharing a silent, weary understanding. You never find out for sure. The queen never mentions it again, and the rigid protocol snaps back into place the very next meal. But the memory of that small, green pear becomes a secret talisman for you. It's a flicker of warmth you hoard in the cold loneliness of your existence. It doesn't make the fear go away. It doesn't make the job any less deadly. But it gives you something new, a tiny, fragile splinter of connection. A suggestion that the woman whose life you protect might, on some level, see you as a person after all, and in your world that is a treasure beyond price. Just as a semblance of grim routine begins to settle back over the castle, a new disruption arrives. The court is going on a royal progress. The queen, in a move to quell the unrest in the northern provinces and project an image of stability after the recent incident, has decided to journey from the capital and visit several major baronies. For the nobility, a royal progress is a magnificent, disruptive, and wildly expensive honor. For the servants, it's a logistical nightmare. The entire household must be packed up and moved: clothes, bedding, documents, furniture, and most critically, the entire apparatus of the royal kitchen. For you, the news is a fresh wave of terror. The castle, for all its dangers, is a controlled environment. You know the layout. You know the staff. The kitchens are a fortress, secured and monitored. To travel is to abandon this fortress and march into the unknown. Every new castle, every new town, every new kitchen is a new set of variables, the new cast of potential assassins. The journey itself is a slow, cumbersome affair. A great serpent of wagons, horses, and people snakes its way across the countryside. You travel in a covered wagon with some of the queen's other personal staff. It's cramped and uncomfortable, but it affords you a degree of anonymity you don't have in the castle. Here you are just another servant girl, jolting along a muddy road. But the moment you arrive at the first host castle, your role snaps back into sharp focus. The local lord, eager to impress, has prepared a lavish welcoming feast. The kitchen of this castle, while large, is unfamiliar territory. The staff are strangers, their faces a mixture of awe, resentment at the disruption, and nervous energy. You don't know who among them is trustworthy, who is competent, and who might harbor a grudge against the queen or be susceptible to a bribe. The head of household is in a state of barely controlled fury, her face a thundercloud as she inspects the local food stores and preparation areas. Security is doubled. Guards from the queen's own retinue are posted at the kitchen doors, monitoring everything that goes in and out. But it's impossible to watch everyone all the time. Your first tasting in this new environment is terrifying. The dishes are regional specialties, things you've never seen or tasted before. A heavy, dark game pie, a pungent local cheese, a strange, fermented berry wine. Every bite is a complete leap of faith. Is this dish supposed to taste this way? Is the sourness a feature of the local cuisine, or the tang of a plant-based toxin? You have no baseline, no frame of reference. This was a well-known problem for traveling monarchs. The logistics of ensuring food safety on the road were immense. Some rulers, like Queen Elizabeth I of England, traveled with their entire kitchen staff and a massive baggage train carrying their own food, water, and even cooking equipment. It was a self-contained, mobile fortress of a kitchen. This practice, however, was incredibly expensive and not always feasible. More often, the royal household had to rely on local provisions, creating a massive security headache. You find yourself relying more than ever on the strange, folkloric knowledge Lara gave you. You discreetly dip your silver bracelet into the wine, watching for any tarnish. You mutter the silly, superstitious rhymes she taught you under your breath. These rituals are placebos, psychological armor against a very real threat, but they are all you have. One of the oddest, and most historically debated, travel-sized anti-poison devices you've been given is a serpent's tongue. which is hung on a small stand on the table. It was widely believed that the forked tongue of a serpent, usually a fossilized shark's tooth, which had a similar shape, would sweat or change color in the presence of poison. It's pure superstition, a piece of impressive-looking magical thinking. But in a world of uncertainty, people clung to any perceived advantage. You stare at the shark's tooth, willing it to give you a sign, a clue, anything. It remains stubbornly inert. The days on the road blur into a series of tense, unfamiliar meals in a series of tense, unfamiliar castles. You become exhausted, not just from the travel but from the constant, heightened state of alert. Your paranoia, already a constant companion, grows new and sharper teeth. You see potential threats everywhere, in the smiling face of a local cook, in the pitcher of water brought by a serving girl you've never seen before, in the wild herbs gathered from a nearby forest. The queen herself is tired, but the progress seems to be working. The crowds cheer, the local lords put on their best displays of loyalty, and the image of royal power is restored. She is winning the political battle, but you are on the front lines of the secret war, and the front lines are constantly shifting. The terrain always new and hostile. One evening, in a drafty northern fortress, you are tasting a simple bowl of stew. It's hearty and warm, a welcome respite from the chill. But as you eat, you notice the local lord watching you, not with the usual curiosity, but with an intense, almost hungry gaze. He is watching to see if you'll drop, and in his eyes you see the truth of your situation more clearly than ever. On this journey, you are not just the queen's taster. You are a symbol. Your survival at each meal is a public declaration of the host's loyalty and competence. Your death would be his ruin. Your life has become a piece of political theater, performed for an ever-changing, ever-judging audience. Your position at the queen's side, silent and ever-present, makes you more than just a shield. It makes you an unwilling repository of secrets. You are a fixture, a piece of human furniture that the powerful people of the court have learned to overlook, and in their carelessness they speak. During tense breakfasts, you hear the Queen and her Chancellor discuss route movements on tax levies in clipped, urgent tones. At private suppers, you are privy to the Queen's unfiltered, often scathing opinions of her various nobles and foreign ambassadors. The Duke of Northwood has the spine of a jellyfish. She might mutter into her wine the same wine you declared safe just moments before. The conversations flow around you as if you weren't there. You learn which lords are in favor and which are on thin ice. You learn of secret alliances and simmering rivalries. You hear whispers of marriage negotiations for the young princess, of border disputes, of bad harvests that are being kept from the public. You are collecting a dangerous treasure trove of information, secrets you never asked for and certainly do not want. This is a well-documented, if often overlooked, aspect of life for personal servants in royal courts. They were invisible witnesses to history. Their proximity to power gave them a unique, if perilous, perspective. The great irony is that the most powerful people in the kingdom, obsessed with secrecy and surrounded by spies, would often speak freely in front of those they considered no one. And you are the ultimate no one. Your function is so specific, so grim, that your humanity, your ability to listen and understand, is completely discounted. Your knowledge is a heavy, dangerous burden. It makes you a threat. If anyone knew what you knew, you would become a target for reasons entirely separate from your official duties. A scheming courtier might try to bribe or blackmail you for information. An enemy of the Queen might see you as a valuable intelligence asset to be captured and interrogated. Your silence is not just a professional requirement, it's a survival tactic. You learn to perfect the art of being unapproachable. You keep your eyes downcast. You school your features into a mask of blank indifference. You hear a shocking revelation about a trusted advisor being in debt to a foreign power, and you focus on the texture of the bread you're chewing. You overhear a plot to disgrace a rival noble family, and you concentrate on the temperature of the water you're sipping. You build a wall inside your mind, a place where the secrets go to be buried, hopefully forever. One evening, a particularly sensitive conversation takes place. The Queen is dining with Omihurst Piemaster, a man with eyes like chips of flint. They speak in low, guarded voices, but the room is small, and you are standing only a few feet away. They are discussing the investigation into Thomas's death. We believe the poison was sourced from the apothecary in the lower town, the spy master murmurs, the one frequented by the servants of the southern delegation. The Queen's hand stills on her goblet. So it was them. A political act. We cannot prove it conclusively, Your Majesty, the spy master cautions, but the timing is convenient. Their trade negotiations were failing. A destabilized court is a more pliable one. Your blood runs cold. You finally have a plausible answer to the question that has haunted you for months. It wasn't a disgruntled cook or a rival courtier. It was a foreign power. A cold, calculated act of political chess, and Thomas was the pawn they chose to sacrifice. The spy master's eyes flicker towards you for a fraction of a second. She hears nothing he says to the Queen, his voice flat. It's not a question. It's a statement of fact, a reminder of your official status as an inanimate object. She had better not, the Queen replies, her voice like ice. The conversation moves on, but the weight of that secret settles upon you like a physical shroud. You now know something that could start a war. This isn't just court gossip, it's a state secret of the highest order. The knowledge burns in your mind. The phenomenon of servant as spy is a recurring theme in history. While some were intentionally placed to gather intelligence, many, like you, became spies by accident. They were simply in the right place at the wrong time, over and over again. The question that historians debate is how often this information was acted upon. Did a servant ever dare to leak a secret they'd overheard? The risks were astronomical. Betraying the secrets of the crown was treason, an offense punishable by the most gruesome means imaginable. You retreat to your room that night, the Queen's icy words echoing in your ears. She had better not. It was a clear, unambiguous threat. You are a liability as a listener. You press your hands to your ears as if you could physically block the secrets from rattling around in your skull. You understand now that the food is not the only thing that can kill you in this court. The wrong word, the wrong piece of knowledge, can be just as deadly as any poison. Breathing secret, and you pray no one ever tries to read you. The weight of your knowledge and the ceaseless, grinding fear begin to take their toll. Your nights are plagued by restless dreams, and your days are a tightrope walk over a chasm of anxiety. You find yourself turning to the small, secret world of superstition, the only place where you feel you have any agency at all. Your primary source for this clandestine comfort is Elora. In your rare, brief meetings, she passes on not just practical advice, but the deep-seated folklore of survival that has been passed down through generations of servants living in the shadow of power. These are not the grand, state-sanctioned beliefs involving bezoar stones and unicorn horns. This is the magic of the powerless, the small rituals of the forgotten. Elora gives you a small, crudely carved wooden charm, supposedly whittled from a lightning-struck oak. Keep it in your pocket, she whispers, her hand closing over yours. It confuses ill intent. Makes a poisoner's hand shake. It's a silly, fanciful idea, but the charm feels solid and real in your pocket. When you stand, waiting for a verdict from your own body after a particularly suspicious-looking dish, your fingers find the charm, and its rough texture is a small grounding comfort. You begin to adopt a series of private rituals, a secret choreography of fear management. Before each meal, you turn 3 times in a circle on the spot where you will stand. You never step on the cracks in the flagstones as you walk to the dining chamber. You find yourself whispering a nonsensical rhyme Elora taught you under your breath. A rhyme about a fox and a raven that is supposed to ward off hidden evils. These actions are, on a rational level, meaningless. They have no scientific basis, but they are not for science. They are for your sanity. They impose a sense of order on a chaotic and unpredictable reality. You cannot control whether the food is poisoned. You cannot control whether the food is poisoned. But you can control whether you turn in a circle 3 times. You can control whether you avoid the cracks. In a life stripped of all other power, these tiny, self-imposed rules are a desperate attempt to reclaim a sliver of control. This reliance on charms, amulets, and ritualistic behaviors was incredibly common throughout history, especially in times and places of high stress and uncertainty. People from all social strata, from peasants to kings, engaged in what we would now call magical thinking. It was a way of making sense of a world that often seemed random and hostile. For someone in your unique position, facing a specific and terrifying threat on a daily basis, this impulse would be magnified 100-fold. One of the most peculiar folk beliefs you adopt is related to salt. Salt was a precious commodity, a symbol of purity and incorporatedly. Spilling salt was considered a terrible omen. As a counter-ritual, you are taught that if salt is ever spilled near you, you must immediately throw a pinch of it over your left shoulder. The left side was believed to be where evil spirits lurked, and the salt was meant to blind the devil, or any other malevolent influence that might be whispering in your ear. You watch the salt sellers on the royal table with an eagle's eye, treating a clumsy hand. Your most private and most important ritual takes place in your room each night. Alara gave you a small nubby tallow candle. It's not for light. Before you go to sleep, you light the candle and speak the names of all the foods and drinks you tasted that day into its flame. Leek soup. You whisper to the flickering light. Manchet bread. Poached salmon. White wine. Water. You name each one, offering it up to the flame. A way of purifying the memory and cleansing yourself of the day's risk. You then let a single drop of hot wax fall onto the back of your hand. The small, sharp sting is a reminder that you are alive, that you have survived another day. It's a painful, secret punctuation mark at the end of each successful 24-hour cycle. Historians often debate the line between religion, superstition, and early science. Many practices that seem like pure superstition to us had a kernel of logic to them in their time. The silver tarnishing, the fear of spoiled food, these were based on real-world observation. But for things like the lightning-struck oak or the salt ritual, the purpose was purely psychological. They were a bomb for a terrified mind. You know in some rational corner of your brain that your wooden charm will not stop a dose of arsenic. You know that a rhyme will not neutralize a poisoned wine. But your rational brain is not the part of you that is in charge right now. The part in charge is the ancient, primal part that is terrified of the dark. And that part of you will cling to any flicker of light, no matter how small or how strange. These silly secret rituals are your armor. They are the invisible shield you wear over your heart, and they are, in their own way, just as important as the guards at the door and the lock on the spice box. The royal progress ends, and the court returns to the capital, but the peace it was meant to project feels fragile and thin. The unresolved murder of Thomas and the whispers of foreign plots have planted a seed of suspicion in the Queen's mind, and it has taken root, growing into a thorny, choking vine of paranoia. Her behavior changes, subtly at first, then more dramatically. The already stringent security measures are tightened to an almost suffocating degree. The number of cooks in the royal kitchen is halved, with only the most long-serving and trusted staff remaining. Every ingredient, no matter how humble, is now sourced from a single, royally controlled estate, transported under armed guard. The Queen will no longer eat game hunted from the royal forests. Fearing a stray arrow was deliberately poisoned. Your job, already a nightmare of tension, becomes a labyrinth of new, increasingly elaborate protocols. The simple tasting process is no longer enough. Now, before you even take a bite, a series of preliminary tests are performed. The serpent stung the fossilized shark tooth is waved over the plate. A piece of bread is thrown to a dog, a new, official canine taster that now shares your grim duties. Only after the dog shows no ill effects are you permitted to take your own sample. The introduction of animal tasters was a real practice in some paranoid courts. It added another layer to the security theater, another buffer between the monarch and potential death. Of course, the efficacy of this is debatable. A poison that affects a dog in the same way, or in the same time frame. It was another measure that was more reassuring than it was scientifically sound. For you, it's a strange and sad spectacle, watching this poor, unsuspecting animal become a part of the grim machine. The Queen's suspicion extends beyond the food. She trusts no one. Her conversations with her advisors become even more clipped and guarded. She stops taking her walks in the walled garden, fearing an assassin lurking behind a hedge. She develops a habit of constantly looking over her shoulder, her eyes darting around every room she enters. Her world is shrinking, the walls of her own fear closing in on her. And as her paranoia grows, your life becomes infinitely more complicated. She begins to see potential threats in the most mundane things. One day, she declares that the water from the castle well is no longer safe. From that day forward, all her drinking water must be brought in casks from a specific spring miles away, a spring she remembers from her childhood. This creates a logistical nightmare and a new set of potential weak points in the security chain. Another time, she becomes convinced that the metal of her silver plates could be reacting with certain foods to create a poison. All her meals must now be served on plates made of terra-sigillate, a type of high-quality Roman earthenware that was believed to be poison-resistant. Historians note that this belief was quite common. This reddish pottery was thought to shatter or sweat if it came into contact with poison. It was, of course, pure superstition, but for the queen, it's a vital new precaution. Finding enough of this ancient pottery to serve the queen's daily meals becomes a frantic obsession for the head of household. Her fear is a contagion, and it infects everyone around her. The atmosphere in the court becomes thick with distrust. Servants watch each other with suspicious eyes. A dropped plate or a spilled drink is no longer an accident, it's a potential assassination attempt requiring a full investigation. You are at the epicenter of this storm of fear. Your tasting ritual is now so complex, so drawn out, that meals become agonizingly long. You must taste the food, the sauces, the water, the wine. You must wait for the dog to be fine. You must wait for your own body to give the all clear. The waiting period stretches from minutes into what feels like hours. You stand on your designated spot, under the full weight of the queen's terrified gaze, feeling like an insect under a magnifying glass. Her growing paranoia means she is watching you more closely than ever. She scrutinizes your every movement, every expression. A slight hesitation, a momentary frown as you taste something, is enough to make her refuse the entire meal. Your own anxiety becomes a liability. If you look scared, she becomes scared. You have to project an aura of absolute, unwavering confidence, even as your own fear is ratcheting up to an unbearable level. You feel a strange, twisted pity for her. She is the most powerful person in the kingdom, but she is a prisoner of her own terror. She sits at a table laden with food she is too afraid to eat, surrounded by servants she is too afraid to trust, in a castle that feels more like a cage than a home. Her life, which from the outside looks so privileged and grand, is in reality a cramped, lonely, terrifying existence. And you, her taster, are the living embodiment of that terror, a constant, walking, talking reminder of the mortal danger that lurks in every shadow and on every plate. One day, a new dimension is added to your duties, one that fills you with a type of dread that is different, and in some ways, deeper than the fear for your own life. You are summoned not to the Queen's solar, but to the royal nursery. The nursery is a world away from the cold, tense formality of the Queen's chambers. The air is warmer, the light is softer. There are brightly colored tapestries of animals on the walls and carved wooden toys scattered on the floor. In the center of the room, in a high-backed wooden chair, sits the young prince, a small boy of about 5 years old, with his mother's serious eyes and a cloud of unruly dark hair. The Queen is there, standing beside his chair, her hand resting on his shoulder. Her expression is one you have rarely seen, a fierce, anxious tenderness. His Highness has been suffering from a delicate stomach, she says, her voice softer than usual, but laced with an undercurrent of steel. The physician says it is nothing, but one cannot be too careful. From now on, you will attend his meals as well. Your heart sinks. Tasting for the Queen was a matter of state, a grim necessity to protect the crown. But this feels different. This is about a child, a small, innocent boy who knows nothing of pots or poison. A nursemaid, a young woman with a kind but worried face, brings in a small bowl of porridge. It's a simple, childish meal, sweetened with a drop of honey. But as she places an identical bowl on a small table for you, it looks as menacing as any state banquet dish. You pick up the small spoon. The prince watches you, his head cocked to the side with open, uncomplicated curiosity. He doesn't understand your role. To him, you are just a strange lady who has come to eat his breakfast before he does. Why do you get to eat first, he asks, his small voice piping up in the quiet room. The queen puts a gentle hand on his head. "She is making sure it is perfect for you, my love," she says, her voice smooth. "She is our special helper." "A special helper?" You swallow down the bitter irony along with the first spoonful of porridge. You go through the ritual, your movements slow and deliberate. Chew. Swallow. Wait, but this time your fear is not just for yourself, it's for him. The thought of any harm coming to this child, of him suffering the agony you experience with the tainted chicken, is unbearable. This new duty changes the entire emotional calculus of your job. Before, your survival was paramount because it was linked to the queen's. Now you feel a new protective instinct. Your role is no longer just about self-preservation. It is about shielding this small, vulnerable person from the dangerous world he has been born into. Your life is the fire while protecting his. The practice of having tasters for royal children is less documented than for monarchs. But it's a logical extension of the same paranoia. An heir was often just as much of a target as the ruler, if not more so. Eliminating the next in line to the throne was a powerful way to destabilize a kingdom or advance a rival claim. The question that historians grapple with is the psychological impact on the child. How does it shape your view of the world when you learn, from a very young age, that someone might want to kill you and that the person eating next to you is there to die in your place? You become a fixture in the nursery. You taste the prince's porridge, his mashed vegetables, his milk. He, in his childish innocence, grows used to you. He starts calling you the first bite lady. He sometimes shows you his wooden soldiers or asks you questions you cannot answer. His simple, trusting nature is a stark contrast to the suspicious, fearful world of the adults around him. It is both a comfort and a source of profound sadness. One afternoon you are tasting a dish of stewed apples for him. You take a bite, and it tastes off. Not bitter, not metallic, but oddly sour, in a way it shouldn't be. Your internal alarms, honed by months of practice, go off. You subtly shake your head at the nursemaid, who immediately whisks the prince's bowl away with a murmured excuse about it being too hot. You stand there, waiting for symptoms to develop, your heart pounding. But this time the fear is different. You are not just afraid of the pain or the sickness. You are terrified of what might have happened if you hadn't been here. If this small, trusting boy had taken that first bite instead of you. As it turns out, the apples had simply begun to turn. It was spoilage, not poison. You suffer nothing more than a mild stomachache later that day. But the incident solidifies the new weight on your shoulders. You are not just a body anymore, a disposable tool. In this room, for this child, you feel a sense of profound, almost maternal, responsibility. The queen notices the change in you, the extra vigilance you display when it comes to her son. She doesn't comment on it, but you see a new flicker of something in her eyes when she looks at you. It might be respect. It might be gratitude. Or it might just be the cold acknowledgement of a tool that is performing its function exceptionally well. You have found a new reason to survive each day, a reason beyond your own fear. You must survive to protect him. This new purpose doesn't make the job any less terrifying, but it gives your terror a meaning, a nobility that it never had before. You are not just dying for a crown anymore. In the dusty, forgotten corners of the castle, the past lies buried in thin layers of neglect. The servants' quarters, in particular, are a place of high turnover and little sentimentality. People come and go. When one leaves or dies, their meager belongings are often cleared out with brisk, unsentimental efficiency. Your own room, the small, closet-like space that felt like a palace when you first got it, was once occupied by someone else. You've never given it much thought. But one day, while sweeping the rough wooden floor, the broom catches on a loose floorboard you'd never noticed before. Curiosity piqued, you pry it open. Underneath, nestled in the dark, dusty space between the floor and the ceiling below, is a small cloth-wrapped bundle. Your heart gives a little jump. Is it a hidden treasure, a secret message? With trembling fingers, you lift it out. You unwrap the dusty linen to find a collection of small, mundane objects. A single tarnished silver earring, a dried, pressed flower, its color long faded to a papery brown, and a small, thin book. its leather cover cracked with age. It's not a book in the traditional sense, it's a journal, filled with cramped, spittery handwriting. As you begin to read, a chill runs down your spine. The journal is a record of meals. January 3rd. Breakfast porridge, honey. Lunch cold, mutton, bread. Dinner eel pie, spiced wine. All safe. The entries continue, day after day, a monotonous litany of food and survival. You realize with a jolt that you are reading the diary of a predecessor, another taster. The woman who lived in this room before you. Her name, you learn from a single inscription on the inside cover, was NEA. Her handwriting is neat at the beginning of the journal, her entries sparse and factual. But as you read on, you see it change. The script becomes shakier. The entries grow longer, more personal. She writes of her fear, her loneliness, her longing for her family in a village you've never heard of. March 12th. The venison was tough today, but safe. I dreamt of my mother's baking last night. Reading her words feels like a ghostly communion. You are reaching across a short span and touching a soul who lived your exact life, your exact fear. She writes about the long, tense waits after each bite. She writes about the other servants' whispers. She writes about a handsome guard she dares not speak to. You see your own life reflected in her cramped, fading ink. The existence of such personal records is something historians can usually only dream of. The lives of common servants, especially those in such sensitive and secretive roles, often went completely undocumented. They were footnotes in the grand narrative of kings and queens. To find such a personal first-hand account would be a historical revelation, a precious window into the psychological reality of the job. But for you, it is not history. It is a terrifying prophecy. You keep reading, compelled by a morbid curiosity. You learn that NEA was the taster for the previous monarch, the old king. You learn that she too had a close call with some bad shellfish, an experience she describes with visceral, stomach-churning detail that mirrors your own. The last few pages of the journal are different. The handwriting is erratic, barely legible. The entries are short, frantic. October 29th. The new physician brought the king a special tonic. I did not like his eyes. October 30th. Tasted the tonic. A bitter, earthy taste. My head spins. October 31st. Cannot stop shaking. The room is so cold. The final entry is a single, smudged word, fever. And then nothing. The rest of the pages are blank. You close the book, your hands shaking. You finally understand what happened to the woman who lived in this room before you. She didn't retire. She didn't move on. She died. Right here in this bed. Her death likely wasn't from the tonic itself, but from the king's eventual demise. When a monarch died, especially under suspicious circumstances as the old king had, of a sudden fever, the immediate household was often purged. Key servants who knew too much, like a taster, were a liability. They were often quietly dismissed, imprisoned, or, it seems, left to succumb to the same mysterious illness. NEA wasn't the shield that failed, she was the evidence that was erased. You look around your small room. It no longer feels like a sanctuary. It feels like a tomb. You are just the latest occupant in a long line of disposable women. What happens to you when your service is no longer required when the queen dies, either of old age or by an assassin's hand? Will you be rewarded for your loyal service with a quiet retirement, a small pension to live out your days in peace? The fate of tasters after their service is a historical grey area. Some may have been well rewarded, but for many, their knowledge made them dangerous. A taster who knew all the court secrets, who had witnessed every paranoid conversation, was a loose end. NEA's journal suggests a grimmer, more pragmatic reality. You carefully wrap the journal and the other small trinkets and place them back under the loose floorboard. This is a secret you must keep, even from Alara. It is a dark and terrible knowledge that changes your perspective on everything. Before, you were afraid of the next meal. Now, you are afraid of the last one. It is to avoid becoming a ghost who leaves behind nothing but a few pathetic treasures hidden under a floorboard. The discovery of NEA's journal plants a seed of defiance in you. It's not a grand, rebellious ambition, but a small, quiet, desperate need to assert your own existence. You are not just the next name in a line of doomed women. You are a person, and you will not simply vanish without a trace. This defiance manifests in tiny, secret acts of rebellion. They are so small as to be almost invisible, meaningless to anyone but you. But to you, they are everything. They are your way of shouting into the void, of proving to yourself that you are still alive, still you in the face of a system designed to erase you. Your rebellion begins with the food. You are supposed to be a neutral vessel, a passive detector. But you begin to use your unique position to exercise a minuscule degree of control. If there are two dishes on offer, a bland porridge and a savory tart, and you know the queen prefers the tart, you might, just for a moment, feign a slight hesitation after tasting it. You might press your hand to your stomach for a second too long. It's just enough to make the ever-watchful head of household declare the tart uncertain and serve the queen the porridge instead. It's a petty act, a childish prank, but the feeling of power it gives you is intoxicating. You have, in a tiny way, influenced the queen's day. You have made a choice. You start to manipulate the leftovers. The food that is certified safe and set aside for your own meals becomes your canvas. You might take the perfectly good slice of roasted chicken and feed it to the streak that sometimes prowls the outer courtyard. You deny yourself the perk of the good food as an act of self-denial, a way to remind yourself that you are not just a well-fed animal being fattened for slaughter. Your most significant act of rebellion is centered around knowledge. You are an unwilling sponge for state secrets. You are supposed to hear nothing, to know nothing. But you begin deliberately to listen. You no longer try to block out the conversations happening around you. You absorb them. You commit them to memory. The spymaster's report, the chancellor's complaint, the queen's whispered fears. You hoard these secrets not to use them, but simply to possess them. They are a treasure no one knows you have. It's a dangerous game. But it makes you feel less like a victim and more like a player, however minor, in the great game of the court. You even begin your own version of NEA's journal. You acquire a few scraps of parchment from a sympathetic clerk in the scriptorium, trading a portion of your safe bread for them. You get a small piece of charcoal to write with. In the dead of night, by the light of your single tallow candle, you begin to record your own story. You don't just write down the meals. You write down what you saw, what you heard. You write down what you saw, what you heard. You write about the queen's moods, about the prince's new tooth, about the look on a courtier's face when he was reprimanded. You write about your fear, your loneliness, your discovery of NEA's journal. This act of writing is the ultimate rebellion. You are creating a record. You are refusing to be erased. Historians often lament the lack of written records from the lower classes, the voiceless majority of the population. Their stories are lost to time. But you, in your small, cold room, are fighting against that oblivion. You are giving a voice to the voiceless, even if that voice is only your own. This desire for self-assertion, for small acts of defiance in the face of overwhelming power, is a universal human impulse. It's seen in prisoners who scratch messages on walls, in slaves who create their own secret codes and songs, in any situation where human beings are stripped of their autonomy. These small rebellions are not about overthrowing the system. They are about surviving it with one's spirit intact. One of your favorite and most risky rebellions involves flowers. The prince loves the bright red poppies that grow in a wild patch near the stables. They are considered common, almost weeds, and are never brought into the castle. One day, you pick one on your way back from a supervised walk. You hide it in your sleeve. Later, while tasting the prince's lunch in the nursery, you accidentally drop the poppy onto his empty plate before the food is served. He gasps with delight at the sudden splash of brilliant red. The nursemaid frowns at the breach of protocol, but the queen, seeing her son's joy, says nothing. It's a tiny, beautiful, meaningless act of defiance. You have introduced a small piece of unapproved, unsanctioned beauty into the sterile, fearful world of the royal nursery. These acts do not change the fundamental danger of your life. You are still one bite away from death at any given meal. But they change you. They are the invisible ink of your soul, written across the pages of your oppressive existence. They are the proof that even in the deepest, most suffocating darkness, a single, determined spark can still define its own light. You are not just the queen's taster. You are a woman who denies the queen her favorite tart, who feeds chicken to a stray cat, and who smuggles poppies for a little boy, and that makes all the difference. For months, the fear has been a constant, humming background noise, a threat that is always present but never materializes. The memory of Thomas' death has begun to fade into a cautionary tale rather than an immediate danger. The castle, under its new, suffocating security, feels morbidly safe. And then, on a perfectly ordinary Wednesday afternoon, the hum becomes a roar. The queen is dining with her estranged younger brother, the Duke, a man with a charming smile and a reputation for ambition. It's a tense, formal lunch, an attempt at reconciliation that fools no one. The air is thick with unspoken resentments, unforced pleasantries. The menu is simple, chosen to minimize risk. Baked clear broth, baked fish with lemon, and steamed vegetables. The kind of food that is difficult to tamper with. You go through your ritual, your movements automatic, your senses on high alert as always. The broth is fine, the vegetables are fine. You move to the fish. It's a small, whole sea bass baked in parchment with slices of lemon and sprigs of dill. It looks perfect. You flake off a piece of the white flesh with your fork, ensuring you get a bit of the fish, the lemon, and the dill all in one bite. You place it in your mouth. The initial taste is exactly what you expect: the clean flavor of the fish, the bright tang of the lemon, the fresh, and a slight hint of the dill. You chew once, twice, and then you taste it. Something else. It's not a dramatic, bitter taste like in your nightmares. It's a subtle, almost imperceptible wrongness. A faint, lingering numbness on the tip of your tongue, coupled with a barely there metallic aftertaste that does not belong. Your blood turns to ice water. This is not the panicked what if of a false alarm. This is the quiet, confident arrival of the enemy you have been waiting for your entire career. Your training, your instincts, your countless hours of tense repetition all converge in this single, terrifying moment of clarity. You don't gasp. You don't gasp. Your body goes preternaturally still, your face a perfect mask of neutrality. But your eyes, for a split second, lock with the head of households. In that fleeting glance, 1,000 words are exchanged. She sees the truth in your eyes, and her own face, for the first time since you've known her, pales. The protocol for this exact scenario is something that has been drilled into you, a grim fire alarm procedure. You are to remain calm. You are to give the signal. You raise your hand to your mouth, as if to delicately wipe it with your napkin. With the napkin hiding your fingers, you touch your left eyebrow. It's the code black signal, the silent alarm. It means certainty, not a drill. The poison is real. The head of household moves with a speed and grace that belies her age. She steps behind the queen's chair and murmurs something in her ear. Your Majesty, a sudden matter of state requires your immediate attention in the council chambers. Her voice is a perfect imitation of emergency. The queen, sensing the iron control in her servant stone, doesn't question it. She places her napkin on the table. "You will have to excuse me, brother," she says to the Duke, her own voice betraying nothing. Duty calls. She rises and walks briskly from the room, flanked by 2 guards who seem to appear from nowhere. The Duke looks momentarily confused by the sudden departure. He hasn't noticed a thing. He is still smiling his charming, predatory smile. The moment the queen is clear of the room, the atmosphere shatters. The head of household turns, her face a mask of cold fury. Guards seize the Duke. The room is sealed. No one touches anything. The Duke's smile vanishes, replaced by a look of shocked outrage as guards grab his arms. What is the meaning of this? On whose authority? The head of household gestures towards you. You are still standing by your small table, the fork held loosely in your hand, the taste of betrayal and metal still on your tongue. On her authority, she says, her voice like chipping ice. The final authority. The long-dreaded conspiracy is no longer a whisper or a rumor. It has a face and a name. It is the Queen's own brother, smiling his charming smile while trying to murder his way to the throne. The how and who of the plot, How the poison got past the layers of security and onto the plate is a mystery for later. The what is sitting in your mouth, a ticking time bomb. The why is sitting in the guard's grasp. His face a picture of sputtering indignation. The phantom that has haunted your every waking moment has finally stepped out of the shadows. And you, the girl from the kitchens, are the one who stood in its way. The long, quiet war of nerves has just become very, very loud. The world outside your body has erupted into a controlled, deadly storm. The Duke is being dragged away, protesting his innocence with the theatrical fury of a guilty man. The head of household is barking orders, her voice a weapon. Guards are securing the room, which has been instantly transformed from a dining cellar into a crime scene. But all of that noise, all of that chaos, is starting to fade. Your world is shrinking, contracting down to the space inside your own skin. The numbness on your tongue is spreading. It's a slow, syrupy tide creeping down your throat. The faint metallic taste is stronger now, a coppery tang that coats your entire mouth. A cold dread, far more profound than any fear you've felt before, begins to seep into your bones. This is not a rehearsal. This is the performance. You feel a hand on your arm. It's the physician, his face grim, his eyes full of a terrible urgency. He was summoned the instant the code black was given. "Come, child," he says, his voice low and steady. "We must be quick." You are half led, half carried out of the room, leaving the scene of the crime behind. The journey to your small chamber feels both infinitely long and terrifyingly short. Every step is a conscious effort. Your limbs are beginning to feel heavy, disconnected, as if they belong to someone else. Once in your room, the physician and the grim-faced Elara, who has been summoned for her knowledge of such remedies, go to work. The physician forces a beaker of dark, sludgy liquid into your hands. Charcoal and clay. Drink all of it, now. You obey, the thick, gritty mixture coating your already numb throat. Then comes Elara, with a bowl of the curdled milk and dash you've only ever heard about in whispers. Her hands, usually so steady, are trembling. "I'm sorry, little bird," she murmurs, her eyes full of tears. "This will be unpleasant." It is. The combination of the remedies and the burgeoning effects of the poison trigger a violent, wrenching sickness. Your body becomes a battlefield, convulsing as it tries to expel the invader. You are vaguely aware of the physician checking your pulse, of Elara wiping your face with a cool, damp cloth. You are no longer in control. You are a vessel, a container for a chemical war. Your mind begins to drift untethered from the anchor of your physical senses. Time blurs. Faces float in and out of focus. You think of the little prince, and a wave of relief washes over you. He is safe. You think of A's journal, of her final, smudged entry fever. Is this how it was for her, this cold, creeping paralysis? The poison, you realize with a strange, detached clarity, is a slow one. Not a thunderclap like the one that took Thomas, but a rising tide. Aconite, perhaps, or a carefully measured dose of one of the metallics. The physician mutters something about the numbing palsy, a catch-all term for neurotoxins. The exact substance is unknown, a mystery for the chemists and scholars to debate later. A strange peace begins to settle over you. The terror, which has been your constant companion for so long, finally recedes, replaced by a profound, all-encompassing weariness. You have done your job. You have stood on the wall and taken the arrow meant for another. You have stared into the face of death every single day, and today, it seems, it has finally stared back. You remember the poppy you gave the prince. The flash of red, the moment of pure, simple joy. You cling to that memory. It feels important, a small point of light in the encroaching darkness. You remember the Queen's pear, another small, inexplicable act of humanity. These moments, not the fear, are what come to you now. Your breathing becomes shallow. The world at the edge of your vision is growing dim, the sounds of the room fading into a distant hum. You can feel the life force draining out of you, a slow, inevitable ebb. You have spent so long imagining this moment, playing it over and over in your mind, that its arrival feels almost familiar, like meeting an old acquaintance. Is this the end? Is this where the story of the Queen's taster concludes? You close your eyes. You have done your duty. You have detected the print. You have, in your own quiet way, won. The cost of that victory is your own life, a price you always knew you might have to pay. The darkness gathers you in its embrace, and for the first time in a very, very long time, you feel no fear at all. You just feel tired. So very tired. You are floating in a sea of grey, a place without sensation or time. The pain is gone. There is only a profound, bottomless quiet. Is this death? It's not as frightening as you'd imagined. It's just empty. But then a distant sound. High rhythmic, insistent beat. Thump thump, thump thump. It grows louder, closer. It's a drum, a heartbeat. With a jolt of recognition, you realize it is your own. A pinprick of light appears in the grey emptiness, slowly expanding. Sensation returns, not all at once, but in a slow, creeping tide. The first thing you feel is the rough texture of a wool blanket against your skin. The first thing you smell is the sharp, herbal scent of poultices. The first thing you hear is the low murmur of voices. You try to open your eyes. The lids feel impossibly heavy, as if they are sealed with lead. With a monumental effort, you manage to pry them open a crack. The light is blinding. You squint, and the world slowly resolves into a blurry, indistinct shape. You are in your room. You are in your room. The hours and days that follow are a confusing, feverish blur. You drift in and out of consciousness. Sometimes you wake to find the physician changing the dressing on your arm where HED bled you, a common if questionable medical practice of the time. Sometimes you wake to find Alara spooning a thin, warm broth into your mouth, her face a mask of weary relief. The castle, meanwhile, is in an uproar. The world moved on while you were hovering between life and death. The Duke, faced with the undeniable evidence of your near-fatal poisoning, has confessed. The plot was as simple as it was audacious. He had bribed a single, low-level kitchen boy, a boy who was in debt from gambling, to add a colourless, tasteless liquid to the lemon slices that were to be placed on the Queen's fish. The poison itself was rare, slow-acting neurotoxin salts from a disgraced apothecary in the city, designed to mimic the symptoms of a sudden, paralytic stroke. It was meant to incapacitate and kill the Queen within the hour, long after the Duke had made his show of reconciliation and departed the castle, giving him a perfect alibi. The entire plot hinged on one thing: that the taster would be too slow, too inept, or too frightened to notice a subtle neurotoxin. They gambled on your failure. They lost. You, in your sickbed, become the center of the storm. You are the key witness, the living proof of the Duke's treason. But you are also an inconvenience. While the Duke is tried and the conspirators are rounded up, you are a loose end, a piece of evidence that is being carefully guarded and, for the moment, forgotten. You are too weak to move, too tired to speak much. You lie in your bed and listen to the muffled sounds of the castle from outside your door. The tramp of guards' boots, the raised voices of officials, the distant, chilling sound of a crowd gathering in the main courtyard for the Duke's public sentencing. You are at the heart of the greatest political scandal in a generation, and you are experiencing it as a series of faint, disembodied sounds. Your role as a taster has always been a solitary one, but this is a new kind of isolation. You are no longer just separate from the court's daily life. You are a patient, an object of medical care and security concern. The head of household visits you once a day. Her demeanor is no longer just a turn, it's laced with a new, unfamiliar respect. You are no longer just a tool for her. You are the tool that saved the entire kingdom. The Queen asks for you daily, she tells you, her voice clipped but no longer cold. She is grateful, grateful. The word sounds strange in the quiet of your room. You have never been the object of royal gratitude before. You have only ever been the object of royal precaution. The historical record is often silent on what happened to tasters who were poisoned but survived. Such an event was a major security failure and a political embarrassment. The focus would have been on the plot, the conspirators, the political fallout. The taster, having served their purpose by either dying or, in rare cases, surviving, would often fade from the narrative. They were the catalyst, not the protagonist. Their story ended when the poison was discovered. But your story, it seems, is not quite over. As you lie in your bed, slowly regaining your strength, you are a paradox. You are a hero who will never be named in the history books, a savior whose identity must remain a secret. You are the most important person in the castle and, simultaneously, a footnote. You have become a living legend, a ghost story told in the servants' halls, the taster who faced down a duke and lived to tell the tale. The castle has been saved, the line of succession secured, and you, the girl who was not supposed to survive, are left in the quiet aftermath, a forgotten hero in the center of it all. The body is a resilient thing. Slowly, painstakingly, you begin to heal. The days of feverish delirium give way to a long, tedious period of recovery. The first time you manage to sit up on your own, the room spins, but you stay upright, a small, hard-won victory. The first time you walk, leaning heavily on Alara, your legs feel like foreign objects, clumsy and weak, but with each passing day, a little more strength returns. Your physical recovery, however, is far simpler than your psychological one. You survived. You faced the monster that haunted your every waking moment and, through a combination of skill, luck, and a robust constitution, you defeated it. You should feel triumphant. Instead, you feel. The experience has changed you in a fundamental way. The fear, which was once a sharp, ever-present threat, has been replaced by a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. You have been to the edge of death and looked over. The return journey has left you scarred in ways that no one can see. The Queen summons you as soon as you are strong enough to stand before her. You are brought to her private solar, the same room where you've spent countless hours in silent, terrified vigilance. She is alone, no guards, no ladies in waiting, not even the head of household. She looks at you, her gaze direct and unreadable. You are no longer just her taster. You are the woman who saved her life, who took the poison meant for her. This shared experience, this intimate brush with death, has irrevocably altered the dynamic between you. They tell me you are a miracle, she says, her voice quiet. It's the most personal thing she has ever said to you. You don't know how to reply. You simply stand, your hands clasped in front of you, your posture ingrained with the habit of servitude. Your service to the crown, she continues, has been beyond measure. Such loyalty cannot be repaid. It can only be rewarded. She tells you that you are being released from your duties. You are being given a full retirement, a generous pension that will allow you to live in comfort for the rest of your days. A small cottage on a royal estate by the sea, a place far from the intrigue and paranoia of the court, will be yours. You will be given a new name, a new identity. You are to become a respectable widow, a woman with no past and a quiet future. It's a dream come true. It's the ending that NEA in her journal could only have prayed for. It is freedom, safety, a life. But as you listen, a strange and unexpected feeling surfaces, a sense of loss. This terrifying, all-consuming job has been your entire world. This castle, this prison of fear, has been your home. The people in it, the stern head of household, the kind Alara, the little prince, even the remote and unknowable queen, they are the only family you have known. To leave is to be cut adrift. And what of the prince, the thought of leaving him, of no longer being the first white lady who ensures his safety, brings a sharp, painful pang. Who will watch over him now, who will taste his food with the same fierce, protective vigilance? The question of what happens to a compromised taster is a logical one. Can a person who has been severely poisoned ever be a reliable detector again? Their body chemistry might be altered. Their senses might be dulled. Or more likely, their nerve might be shattered. You have proven your worth, but you are now, in a strange way, damaged goods. From a cold, pragmatic standpoint, you are a security risk. Retiring you is not just a reward, it's a practical necessity. A new girl has been chosen, the queen says, as if reading your thoughts. She is young, strong. You will teach her what you know before you leave. And so, for your final weeks in the castle, you become the new Alara. You are assigned a young, terrified girl from the laundry, a girl with wide eyes and trembling hands who looks at you with a mixture of awe and utter horror. You are her predecessor, the legend, the ghost who lived. You teach her the rules, written and unwritten. You teach her to trust no one. You teach her to listen to her body. You show her the code black signal. You are passing on the torch a grim and heavy burden. As you look at her, you see a perfect reflection of yourself on your first day. You see the fear. And you understand with a chilling certainty that the cycle will continue. The machine always requires a new part. Your survival came at a cost. The cost was the innocence you once had, the simple relationship with the world that you can never get back. But you did more than just survive the poison. You survived the job. You are getting out. You are one of the few who will have a life after you don't know what that life will look like, or if you will ever truly be free of the ghosts of the castle. But as you prepare to leave, you hold on to the one thing you have truly won a future. Your last day at the castle is quiet and unremarkable. There is no ceremony, no grand farewell. To the vast majority of the court, you are just a servant girl who is leaving her post. Your true story is a secret, locked away in the minds of a handful of powerful people. You pack your few belongings, the 2 wool dresses, the wooden charm from Alara, and hidden in the lining of your bag, the scraps of parchment that make up your journal. You leave Annie's journal where you found it, under the floorboard. It does not belong to you. It belongs to the room, a silent testament for the next girl, and the one after that. Alara pulls you into a fierce, weary hug, pressing a small bag of dried lavender into your hand. To keep the nightmares away, she whispers, her eyes wet. The head of household gives you a stiff, formal nod and a purse heavy with coins, your first pension payment. Her expression is, as always, unreadable, but you think you see a flicker of something that might be respect. Your final farewell is in the nursery. The little prince is playing with his wooden soldiers. You are no longer his first bite lady. Your replacement, the new terrified girl, stands awkwardly by the wall. The prince looks up and sees you in your traveling cloak. He runs to you, his face full of childish confusion. Are you going away? You kneel down, your heart aching. I am, you say softly. Will you come back? I don't think so, your highness. He looks down at his shoes, his lower lip trembling slightly. Then he looks up, his small face serious. He presses one of his wooden soldiers, a knight with a slightly chipped sword, into your hand. To keep you safe, he says. You close your hand around the small painted piece of wood, a lump forming in your throat. You have taken 1,000 bites to keep him safe, and now he is giving you a toy soldier to do the same for you. It's a perfect, heartbreaking, innocent exchange. A carriage is waiting for you in the outer courtyard. As it rumbles away from the castle, you don't look back. You look forward, towards the sea, towards the new life that awaits you. Years pass. You are no longer the taster. You are a quiet widow living in a small, comfortable cottage overlooking the sea. The salt spray, not the scent of beeswax and fear, is what fills your mornings. You have a small garden. You learn the names of shells and seabirds. You learn what it is to be blessedly, wonderfully bored. But the past is never truly gone. It lives in you, in the small, ingrained habits you can't shake. You still find yourself cutting your food into tiny pieces. You still pause after the first bite of any meal, a ghost of the old tension running through you. You are unnaturally sensitive to strange tastes and smells. You are the only person in your small village who knows the subtle difference between the scent of almonds and the scent of almonds and the scent of cyanide. Sometimes at night, the nightmares come back. You dream of Thomas collapsing, of the Duke's smiling face, of the spreading numbness in your own limbs. You wake up with your heart pounding, the taste of metal in your mouth, and you have to walk outside to feel the cool, damp sea air on your face to remind yourself where you are. The question of how veterans of such traumatic professions readjusted to civilian life is a gap in the historical record. There were no therapists, no support groups. They simply had to live with their ghosts. Historians can only speculate on the long-term psychological scars left by a life of constant, state-sanctioned paranoia. You never speak of your time at the castle. The new name, the new identity is a shield. Your neighbors know you as a quiet, pleasant woman who keeps to herself. They do not know that you have stood beside kings and queens, that you have held state secrets in your head and deadly poisons on your tongue. One day an official court herald passes through your village, announcing the news: the old queen has passed away peacefully in her sleep. A new king now sits on the throne. The little boy you once knew now a man. You feel a strange mixture of sadness and relief. An era has ended. A chapter has finally, truly closed. You walk down to the beach, the little wooden soldier clutched in your hand. You look out at the vast, endless ocean. You survived. It wasn't glorious or heroic in the way the bards sing about. It was a quiet, desperate, daily battle fought in silence. You were a shield, a tool, a disposable piece in a deadly game. That you endured, you outlasted the poison, the plots, and even the queen you were meant to protect. You have a garden of your own, safe, and the quiet rhythm of your own safe, unremarkable life, and you realize with a sudden, startling clarity that this is the greatest treasure the kingdom could ever have given you. The sun begins to set, painting the undersides of the clouds in soft shades of rose and gold. The rhythm of the waves is a gentle, constant whisper, a lullaby from the sea itself. You can feel the last of the day's warmth radiating up from the sand beneath your feet. The story is over now. The fear, the tension, the endless, quiet waiting, it has all dissolved, like salt in the ocean. The girl from the story is safe. You are safe. The gentle hum of the world settles around you, a soft blanket of sound. The distant cry of a gull, the sigh of the wind in the dune grass, the steady, rhythmic breathing of the tide. It's a symphony of peace, a melody of rest. There are no more meals to taste, no more poisons to fear. Just the slow, steady turning of the world, easing its way into the quiet dark of night. Your own breathing begins to deepen to match the slow, ancient rhythm of the waves. In, and out, a soft, easy cadence. The last vestiges of the day's thoughts begin to drift away, carried out on the tide, leaving behind only a calm, quiet stillness. You are floating now, not in a sea of grey uncertainty, but on a soft, warm current of approaching sleep. Rest now. The watch is over. The end of the article. Good night.